Don't laugh at me. I know I'm old.
No, we're laughing at drive-thru.
Oh, drive-thrus were great, man.
No,
they were.
It's a drive-in, not a drive-through.
Thank you for the movie.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash Pleasure Moon Arden.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time to decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. You can find all information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And a few people have written in and messaged me about not being able to find the Shat on TV podcast. There actually isn't a podcast named Shat on TV. You got to go look for one of those podcasts. It's a separate one for each TV show. But thank you so much for being interested in our library of work. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, before we get to today's movie, I just want to say also, if you go to shatpod.com/subscribe, there is a page that has every single one of our podcasts and a convenient link below it on where you can subscribe to all of the different podcatchers, whether it's Apple, iPhone, Android, whatever. It's all in one place, so you don't got to go searching. Go to shatpod.com, subscribe, and you can find them all there. And as for today's movie, Gene, I'm excited. I'm nervous. A lot of times when there's movies that both of you have a sentimental attachment to, I don't think I take that into account as much as I should. Because today I'm feeling vulnerable, because this is a movie which I deeply love. And that's why I was so excited when one of our great listeners, Sean V, wrote in, and he wanted us to get into our homemade rocket and blast off to the stars to defend the Earth and review the 1980 sci-fi classic, Flash Gordon.
Well, we have a great letter from him here that says, Dear Shat Crew, this one is for you. I contacted Big D back in the fall of 2021 and asked, what movie would you three like to review? Because you've done so much at our request over many years. I thought it was time to commission something you've wanted to review. It didn't take long for Big D to respond, Flash Gordon, come on down. I was about 3 or 4 years old when this movie came out. I'm nearly certain that I saw Flash Gordon for the first time in the mid-'80s on TBS, when it probably came on at 7:05 or 9:35. Remember those weird start times? I grew up loving Star Wars, so when I saw this for the first time, I thought something like, is this a joke or are they serious? Now, as a 46-year-old man, I ask you, is this a joke? Or were they serious? On one hand, it's so campy. The costumes, some of which will qualify for either RuPaul's Drag Race or the Folsom Street Fair, the somewhat suspect acting, the clunky, almost Rocky Horror Picture Show-esque plot development, it's a space opera parody on Molly. On the other hand, the Queen soundtrack and undeniably giddy entertainment value makes me wonder. Maybe they were trying to capture the weird fantasy world first embodied by the comic and not trying to be overly serious. It magically straddles the line between Spaceballs and Star Wars. Were they in on the joke? Were they trying to make high art? I leave this existential question to your considerable wisdom. Gene, Ash, Big D, my wish for you is that you have fun with this one and know it's for you on behalf of all of us. I am looking forward to laughing along with you. You bring all such joy. You make our days a little brighter by sharing your love or loathing of these movies with us. Happy 2023 to each of you. One last question. Gordon's alive? Love you all, Sean.
Well, Happy New Year to you, Sean, and welcome to 2023. I hope we can bring you a lot of joy with this pod. I got to say that the questions that you were asking and the views you had on this film are so in line with the way I watch this movie, because I had independently the same thoughts. is this supposed to be a Rocky Horror Picture Show type of movie? Because if so, well done. But if it's supposed to be something in the vein of Star Wars, holy shit.
I also take really offense to your reference to RuPaul there. Like RuPaul, their costumes are so much better than what we're going to talk about seeing in this movie.
Oh,
drag queens deserve more.
Oh, I got to disagree on that one. I think we'll get into it, but these costumes were dynamite. From the little people to the tall people, everybody looked fantastic. Well, Flash Gordon is a 1980 space opera based on the King Features comic strip of the same name created by Alex Raymond. The film stars Sam J. Jones, Melody Anderson, Ornella Muti, Max von Sydow, and Topol, with Timothy Dalton, Mariangela Mulatto, Brian Blessed, and Peter Wingard in supporting roles. The film follows star quarterback Flash Gordon and his allies Dale Arden and Hans Zarkov as they unite the warring factions of the planet Mongo against the oppression of Ming the Merciless. Producer Dino De Laurentiis, who had previously overseen two other comic book adaptations, Danger Diabolique and Barbarella, had held an interest in making a Flash Gordon film since the 1960s. After a directorial offer from George Lucas was declined, resulting in the creation of Star Wars, and a version that was to be directed by Federico Fellini did not enter production, De Laurentiis hired director Nicholas Roeg and Enter the Dragon writer Michael Allen to lead development on the film in 1977. But then he replaced them with Mike Hodges and Lorenzo Semple Jr., who had scripted De Laurentiis' remake of King Kong, due to his dissatisfaction with Roeg's vision for the film. Due to a dispute with De Laurentiis, Sam J. Jones then left the film prior to the end of principal photography, resulting in much of his dialogue being dubbed by actor Peter Maringer. The film is noted for its musical score by the rock band Queen, featuring orchestral sections by Howard Blake. So Big D, Ash, we always ask where you were and what your memories are of the movie we're covering. Today it is Flash Gordon. Ash, let's start with you.
So I think I'm probably going to catch flack for this because this is such like a consummate film you're supposed to have watched from this era, but I have never seen this movie. The only reason I really know the song well is from that terrible movie, Blades of Glory, that Will Ferrell and the guy who played Napoleon Dynamite are in, because they do their routine to this song. And so that's where I know it from. But other than that, I didn't know anything about it. So I was happy to finally like enjoy it in like this little Shat setting, and Big D, you know, kicking in for you here, you know, your own nostalgia, and hopefully be kinder than anyone was to me on Grease 2.
I feel like a broken record here, no pun intended, but this is a movie I got into because of the music. When Wayne's World came out with Bohemian Rhapsody, I went down this Queen rabbit hole and started listening to everything they'd ever put out. So I pop in this CD, and the minute I hear Flash, I was like, this is from a movie? I've got to see this movie. I rushed out and rented it. And gay jokes being what they were with teenage boys in the 90s, this was a hit with me and my friends. The homoeroticism is off the charts, and we gobbled it up.
So Sean and our older listeners will know where I'm coming from this, but we've grown a larger audience, I think, of people that are younger, that never grew up without their Netflix, without their on-demand services, without the ability to immediately see what they want. And even before, I mean, when this came out, there was no rental stores, and Flash Gordon, it became legendary. When kids talk about something and you can't see it, it's almost this mystique. It becomes bigger than it ever would, and word of mouth spread. And for the kids who were lucky enough to have seen it, they would tell the story. The other kids like me would get envious. And you just had to get lucky enough or plan your day or plan your time to find this movie. And I can totally remember, I had built up this film and the world and the stories of Flash to where the day it was going to air, it wasn't on TBS or one of those, because this was before we had cable. So this was on, maybe it was like the ABC movie of the day. We all got together, my group of friends. We played till about 5 o'clock. And then somebody said, 1 hour to Flash. And we broke apart and we ran home like it was Christmas morning with the excitement. And I sat down there. I watched it knowing all my friends were watching it. And the next day that we got back to school, that's all everybody could talk about. Now I know that memory of running home, you know, like Ralphie, you know, thinking he's going to get the Red Ryder for Christmas, or just kids, the excitement. I know it's going to taint my memory, but even going back to that day, I can still feel the excitement, the awe, and the joy of this movie, even some 40 plus years later.
taint your memory. I thought Big D was trolling me all week because he kept hitting me with these messages. They're like, this movie's fantastic. When that Queen score hits, oh my God, it just gets me pumped up. And I thought this was a joke. I entered this podcast thinking Big D was fucking with me. Suddenly, this all makes sense. We're tapping into like this 5-year-old root of your identity.
Yeah. Yeah. And please, I know it came out after Star Wars, but this is a different vein. This is a campier version. This is a comic strip. Don't be too harsh on it, please. And Ash, I'm sorry about Grease too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't. You can't apologize for that at the start of this pod because
I'm trying to earn some points.
Like I'm gonna have integrity here and judge this the way it's deserved to be judged. But I do appreciate that you have some nostalgia here, and 5-year-old you loved it. But I want to remind you that you've made fun of Grease 2 on multiple podcasts since that podcast. So I feel like I have a lot to make up for here.
It's because I'm an asshole. Don't be me. Don't be Big D.
And you're an asshole because of this movie.
Yes.
Well, let's all hop into Zarkov's rocket ship, buckle up, and hit the trailer.
What plaything can you offer me today?
The planet Earth.
What's happening?
It's an attack.
Pathetic earthlings! Who can save you now?
Flash! They'll kill you!
Let's all team up and fight him.
Prepare for torture.
I want him.
Stop at nothing.
Flash, I love you! But we only have 14 hours to save the Earth!
Flash Gordon is still alive.
Gordon's alive?
Yes! Must be my lucky day.
To relieve his boredom, Emperor Ming the Merciless of the planet Mongo decides to destroy Earth by causing natural disasters. On Earth, New York Jets football star Flash Gordon boards a small plane with travel agent Dale Arden. The cockpit is hit by a meteor, and the pilots are lost. Flash and Dale crash land into a greenhouse owned by Dr. Hans Zarkov, who believes the disasters are being caused by an extraterrestrial source and has secretly constructed a spacecraft to investigate. Zarkov lures Flash and Dale aboard, taking them to Mongo, where they're captured by Ming's troops.
So I'm old enough that I saw the original Star Wars in a drive-thru with my X-Wing fighter. So I remember the excitement of that film as well. And this came out like right after that. We're talking like 2 years. So people thought, hey, this is a money grab. This is going to be the new... Don't laugh at me. I know I'm old.
No, we're laughing at drive-thru.
Oh, drive-thrus were great, man.
No,
they were.
It's a drive-in, not a drive-through.
Thank you for the movie.
Yeah, I guess maybe I am too old. Maybe I'm not reliable enough. Okay, yeah, you're right. It was a drive-in movie.
You drove in, you didn't drive through.
That's true. Sorry about that. So, like when that came out and it was a hit, every movie studio was going to try to come up with their next big Star Wars. But there was a very different vision of Star Wars. Star Wars, yeah, the special effects, they made it possible. You could have a realistic space. It's that worn in, that gritty space. But Flash Gordon went the other way. It originally was a comic strip from the 30s, and it was stylized. It was a different time. So where Star Wars was just, its plots were ridiculous, but it just always had a serious reverence to the topic. Like you almost couldn't laugh in world at the Force or any of the things going on. Flash Gordon went completely the other way. They were winking at us, Gene. This is Rocky Horror Picture Show in space. And there is that fine balance that Flash Gordon, I think, winks at us enough. It's fun. It's colorful. And without that, this movie would have been forgotten today and not the cult classic that the few of us old enough to remember it have it.
I think for something to be a cult classic, those of you that aren't so old have to also remember it fondly to this day. But I also appreciate that you call Star Wars gritty and grungy. I don't know if those are the words that I would use to describe it, but I do think that you're giving this movie a lot more credit than potentially it deserves. I think any movie that sets out, if that is what they set out to do, to be cool in that way, like I think it failed miserably. I also would argue the Star Wars plot is not ridiculous. That isn't at all how I would describe that plot. I think that plot is interesting, and the Force is more interesting than anything in this movie. But I don't know. I kept asking myself the questions that our commissioner was asking themselves of, okay, is it funny? Like, am I supposed to laugh like it's Spaceballs? Is it a parody? Or is it serious? Because if it's serious, this is just a bad movie. And where I would get confused are those scenes where like it would feel serious. So like Timothy Dalton, when he comes in and he's got his serious acting face on and he's saying his lines in his serious acting way. Like, I don't know if this was meant to be funny or not.
I mean, it's hard to tell because it's a mustache. And mustache and tights, it really blurs the line between serious and camp. But it's only an hour-long podcast, so I can't get into this too deeply. But I will say two things. One is that Star Wars and Aliens did change our view of space. Because prior to that, we had like Star Trek, and everything was squeaky clean. And suddenly they were like, no, they're smugglers, and ships have like, you know, grit and soot and shit on them, and things are broken down, and there's cantinas, crap like that. So I'll give Big D that. The other point is Star Wars' plot is absolutely ridiculous.
No.
I mean, midichlorians, the whole Force thing. You've got space knights that can beat entire like, you know, fucking empires, and they've got lightsabers against blasters. It's absolutely silly, but they found a way to sell it. And I don't know that it's so much serious versus goofing. The two movies certainly aren't in the same league. I think we can all agree to that. Star Wars is a superior film franchise to Flash Gordon. Flash feels like a movie from the 60s made in the 80s. And that makes sense because, as we said, Dino De Laurentiis had been working 20 years to make it. It just came out way too fucking late, and that's what makes it goofy.
I think this movie just made me think of The Rocketeer. It is in that same vein. It is that same style. It's that innocence of the 60s. I don't think it's as campy. Yes, I think The Rocketeer takes itself more seriously. But Ash, you must have been growing up in a religious home that made you believe that there's some mystical force that surrounds us all and we can move objects and the midichlorians and all that was a joke. Lucas, it's on paper with interviews with his big time directing buddies that this was laughable and it was saved in editing.
I don't know. I think Star Wars is just really badass in a lot of ways. And this, I never felt anything about it was cool. Like a lot of Star Wars is slick.
Yeah. Your love of Star Wars comes along with being your age and being a parent. We understand.
Being a parent. I was a fan of Star Wars a long time before I was a parent.
Oh, all parents were.
But that's ridiculous. There's nothing to do with me being a parent. No.
But back to those 30s roots, this does feel comic booky. I mean, in the opening scene, Ming is remotely viewing a planet. He's like, ha, ha, ha. What am I going to do with this? I'm so bored. And they're like, Ming, they call this planet Earth, and its inhabitants are called Earthlings. So it's safe to say that he's not been to this planet before. He doesn't know a whole lot about it. So I was kind of surprised when we're shown Ming's like nefarious keyboard and he's got natural disaster buttons on it, one of which actually says earthquake. Now, maybe Ming has a research and development department that makes him custom keyboards per planet that he's going to destroy. But throughout the movie, Ming's crew seems to demonstrate a pretty deep understanding of Earthlings, like what a gun is, how to speak English. I got to wonder why Ming's tech is so hell-bent on destroying Earth when he's never even heard of it.
But a bigger problem is that Ming, he seems to really enjoy it, which I don't blame him. I think if we were all gods, we would not be the kindest. I think sometimes you might want to make a hurricane. You might want to, because we're ants to Ming. I think it's, as a kid, you never took out like a magnifying glass?
No.
Okay, then I'm the fucked up one. Okay, I'm Ming. Okay, I got it. So Ming likes these huge like disasters. I wouldn't go that far, but then his abilities get a little confusing. I was surprised when Flash is on the plane. The pilots see Ming's face in the clouds. It comes out. It sucks the pilots out. And I found myself wondering, I'm like, okay, does Ming have some knowledge that the rocket's down there? He's trying to stop this preemptive attack. Or is this just that Ming really likes to get granular, that he's omnipresent? He's everywhere at one time. And I think that makes him a more sadistic and villain to be feared.
I mean, I think they just wanted an effect where he stop motion flies and sucks the people out of the plane. I mean, I just think he likes fucking around with people. And to his credit, right, to his R&D department's credit, most planets, like an earthquake might work, or a tsunami. Like, I feel like they're applicable to more than just Earth. But my bigger issue with this movie was the depiction of space itself. Like, they're taking off in the rocket, and then like they show the backwards view of our solar system, and all of our planets were nicely like lined up next to one another so we could see them all at once. And then I'm questioning the ship. Like, are we in cryo sleep? Because clearly we're traveling light years. We're traveling through some sort of, weirdo galaxy, but it's got to be like light cryo sleep. Like, this is not alien level cryo sleep, because she's wiping away the drool from her face repeatedly, like as like she like leans one way or the other. I mean, I'm so confused.
Ash, it'd be okay if Ming had a button that said tremor or something.
Planet
it specifically says earthquake.
Yeah, you're right. Planet quake.
Yeah.
That's what it should have said. Planet quake.
And did you watch a Trip to the Moon or Smashing Pumpkins Tonight video and be like, well, this is bullshit? The moon doesn't have a face. Like,
no, because they're not trying to sell that way. Billy Corgan wasn't like, hey, we've got a bad guy with a weird Fu Manchu mustache coming to kill us. No, he was making a point with that video, so I can accept it.
One of my favorite phenomenon in watching film is when there's like an unintended hot character that's hotter than the main dude. And I know Flash is supposed to be the beefcake hero of this movie, but I was kind of attracted to Dr. Zarkov, who I think was supposed to be like the nerdy sidekick. Topol, the actor who plays Zarkov, he's like, I would describe him as an Israeli Harrison Ford, but hotter. Like, the minute he showed up, I was like, why do we need Flash at all in this movie? You've got a sexy scientist with a gun and a plan and a rocket ship. Just make the movie about him. What the fuck is this New York Jets quarterback doing here?
No, I agree. He has a presence. I think it's the beard. He's not too old, but he's kind of like a Hebrew Tom Selleck. He was something that a good Jewish girl could bring home, but I doubt anyone or any woman was swooning over him in Fiddler on the Roof. So I think it's the material tied to the man. But yeah, he was hot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with this. I mean, hear me out. I think something happened to me around the age of like 37, 38, where I stopped finding like traditionally hot guys hot anymore. Like, now I just want like stability and like a good job and like the opportunity to like max out our Roth and dress sensibly. Like, Flash, he's a big risk because he's dumb and he has no future. But this guy, I mean, granted, yes, he's a mad scientist in some way, but it's going to pay off long term, I feel like.
I know a lot of you out there listening wonder how Ash can keep her aura of professionalism around me and Big D, two hot guys as we are, but it's specifically because of this reason. It's that we're too wild. Yeah. We're too rebellious. It's like playing with fire, and she just needs something safe.
Yeah, and she's physically attracted to like the Adam Driver type, like the weird type, the unconventionally handsome. So I take that as a compliment.
But Topol,
he looks good
for Ash.
I mean, he looks good. I mean, again, it's not so much him. Like, I just feel like he's stable, and
he could balance a checkbook.
Max out his Roth, get a nice stock portfolio, buy our home, pay off our cars.
He maintains his own greenhouse. Like, that is a testament to responsibility.
Exactly. While creating a rocket. Like, right. I mean, the guy can multitask.
And I have a lot of questions about this rocket. If we can flip the page here. First, Zarkov has a very specific rocket. The design, I'm not so sure about. It's a rocket that takes two people to operate, which I don't understand. And apparently 2 people only have to do 2 distinct functions. One of them is access a panel, and the other one is press a pedal. And as I'm looking at this rocket, the panel and the pedal are on opposite sides of a very tiny room. And I'm thinking, could you put the pedal closer to the panel? And then once they take off, I realize this rocket doesn't seem to have any life support systems. There's no spacesuits. I'm wondering if Zarkov was just assuming that anywhere this lands in the universe is going to be hospitable to human life, because they don't address that at all.
I think he's more mad than scientist. I think we're missing that part. Yeah, you could have have a dial or a lock on the pedal. You could have done anything. What happens if you pass out and you take your foot off the pedal? You're all going to die. A lot of problems here. But his problems go beyond just the design of his rocket, which has to fly through a greenhouse, through the glass, through the steel surrounding, which looked glorious, by the way. The miniature, the on screen, I thought it looked great. But he says this is a surprise counterattack. They're going to save the Earth. So they're going to go up there and they're going to stop Ming. but he doesn't seem to bring any weapons other than a tiny revolver. If Ming has this power to rain down like hot ice or fire from the sky?
Hot hail.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Why didn't you have an atomic bomb? Why didn't you have some kind of laser that you're going to fly your rocket up there and try to blow him out? He forgot the entire second half of the mission. What are you going to do when you get there? Because you're not going to overthrow Ming's kingdom with that tiny pistol.
Well, I don't know if he was ever actually planning on getting there because he's got the issue. There's giant ass buttons on his wall, which is like a massive safety hazard. Like, why do you make them so big and so close to the door? Because he gets thrown around just a little bit and like slams into it. And then all of a sudden they're taking off. Like, it really seems like a safety issue. I think the madness, maybe he didn't actually intend to get there. Maybe it was just like a suicide mission because it seems like he wants them all to die, not actually wants them all to be successful in this saving.
Yeah, the rocket was the weapon.
Right. Yeah, maybe the end of the movie. That was the plan all along, kamikaze attack. But yeah, I don't think OSHA had inspected the greenhouse to make sure this was a safe working environment.
Well, Ming orders Dale to be prepared for his pleasure. He sentences Zarkov to be reprogrammed, and he sentences Flash to be executed. Ming's beautiful daughter, Princess Aura, seduces Ming's surgeon into saving Flash, with whom she fell in love at first sight. As they escape, Flash sees Zarkov being brainwashed by Clytus, the metal-faced head of the secret police. Aura and Flash flee to Arborea, kingdom of Prince Baron. En route, Aura teaches Flash to use a telepathic communicator to contact Dale. Encouraged by Flash, Dale escapes Ming's bedchamber, and Clytus sends Zarkov to intercept Dale, not knowing Zarkov resisted the brainwashing. Zarkov and Dale escape Ming City, but they are quickly captured by Prince Voltan's Hawkmen and taken to Sky City. So the beginning of the movie's fairly grounded as Flash Gordon can be. But then when Flash and his crew arrive on Mongo, things get hella trippy. The movie takes a turn. We got color swirls, there's Hawkmen, there's dudes that look like they escaped Takeshi's castle. It's pretty wild. And so I paused the movie and I checked the time because something in the back of my brain was telling me there was a significance to everything I was seeing. And we were at 20 minutes. I don't know about you guys, but with my body chemistry, 20 minutes is exactly how long it takes for mushrooms to really kick in. And I think it can't be a coincidence. This movie was made for hallucinogens. And like Sean said, it could also benefit from a Rocky Horror Picture Show audience participation treatment, but that's another story.
Yeah, I think films of the late 70s and the 80s, this was something that they did. It was vibrant, it was colorful. I think of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. How did they show when, you know, the little boat is going down the river super fast? You get that trippy light show on the wall. It was an easy way to visually show something that we truly didn't understand yet. And I started thinking also the similarities between this and like The Wizard of Oz. And beyond just the flying monkeys, it is this over-the-top spectacle with a rocket flying through a lava lamp hellscape. It is something beautiful and something unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, I can buy that. The colors, the sparkles. Like if I'm, on shrooms, I'm rewinding parts to watch them like again and again and again for sure. But the gassing scene, like that would be amazing with all the lights and like his little hand and the way it's twitching. But the brainwashing images terrify the hell out of me. Like that would cause me to have a bad trip like instantaneously.
And they go hard on that brainwashing. They go to parts that I don't even remember for myself. Like I don't remember being born, but they're like, no, we want to take everything.
Yeah.
God, where was that in Defending Your Life? That's the shit that we needed to see. I wanted, why didn't they have that? Please defend your life out of that. We're watching it. But I'm going to go someplace I don't know if I've ever gone before. And it is the realm of Gene Lyons, usually exclusively, where Gene really talks about the fashion, because Gene's big into it. But in this movie, I could not help but notice it. And I appreciate the attention to detail that a lot of times I don't pay attention to unless it's something like Game of Thrones. But the over-the-top style, I think it comes through in a lot of ways. The colors, the art design, the things we've been talking about, that really, for me, the thing that I saw they spent the most time and appreciated was it's legitimate fashion. The costumes in this, and yes, they were the work of Oscar-winning costume designer and production designer Danilo Donati, and the work of the famed Federico Fellini. Instead of cutting costs and doing basic uniforms, like a lot of movies like Star Wars or Star Trek, where you get the Klingons, you get what are the other ones? The Romulans. They all have a uniform. Here, we get into into the throne room, and we get to see various inhabitants of the kingdom of Mongo. They are all entirely different. There's all kinds of materials, textures, fabric. Gene, you said we have little people in these shiny little outfits. We have these golden guards with like these metallic uniforms and like little frills, and they've got a skull mask. You got a big fat dude in a white and black. He looks like Cruella de Vil. You have some women walking around who look like swimsuit models with giant elaborate headpieces. We got the Hawkmen coming in like bikers with wings. It's just, it is a thing to see. And if you pay attention to all the little details, these costumes are beautiful and true fashion.
I don't know if I would call them beautiful or true fashion, but they're just ridiculous enough to be amazing. I don't know how these aren't like Halloween costumes that people wear every single year. Just like, we've mentioned Rocky Horror so many times, but there are outfits from Rocky Horror that to this day people wear to every single Halloween party. There's somebody there dressed like somebody from Rocky Horror. And I can't believe that this is not the same, because as you've already mentioned, like the masked head of the guard, there's this random jeweled face lady in the audience. She looks like the lady in the jeweled face mask, and she just looks absolutely insane. That would be great. Any of the Hawk people. And there's even like great, amazing group costume options, like the pastel colored people that come in. And I couldn't help but think about those Hunger Game movies and the way that they dress the people from the Capitol. They're dressed in these really odd ways. They all have these very unique makeup and like appliques to their faces. And I have to believe that the people that did the makeup and the costuming on that set had to have been inspired by this movie, because they look like direct references to each other.
If we're going to talk about costumes, we got to bring up the costuming for the head honcho, Ming the Merciless. So Max von Sydow plays Ming the Merciless. And I got to ask, is this Yellowface? Ming is from another planet, so he's not an Earthling. Therefore, he's not, I guess, strictly Asian. But that planet is called Mongo, which sounds an awful lot like Mongol. And his name is Ming, which is a Chinese dynasty. And he has awfully Asian-inspired outfits and facial hair. And to be honest, I'll never ask for anyone else to play a Max von Sydow role, because Max von Sydow is terrific. He's been great in everything we've seen him in. But I couldn't help but ask myself, would the movie be better served with an Asian actor?
Oh, there's no chance. No chance whatsoever. I think you needed somebody with the gravitas of Max von Sydow.
There's no Asians with gravitas?
I can't think of any right now that I say could pull this role off. There is, but
just sunk the podcast.
I did not sink the podcast.
Well, I did.
Listen, can you come up with one?
Pat Morita.
Yeah, exactly. Stereotyping
Jet
there,
Li.
Gene. Get the little Asian man pruning trees and grooming boys in his basement. No.
What
Sydow.
version of Karate Kid did you see?
Oh,
no,
listen to our
that's what
review.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, he was grooming him in the boiler room and plying him with alcohol, making him dress up in clothes.
Doing that hand rubbing thing and then touching him.
Yeah, rubbing his thigh. He didn't consent to that. Go back and listen to that one, Ash. It is an eye-opening experience. But I think that you needed an actor. Sure, there could have been Asian actors, but I don't think they're making him Asian. The origins of it from the 30s, yes, he's probably Chinese, but they don't make him speak in a stereotypical Asian accent. There's no one else who's Asian in the Mongo kingdom that we see. Yes, he's got the Fu Manchu, but that's about as far as I go. I think you can't change him without really damaging the legacy of the film.
I mean, you could make his character not like Asian. You can just make a change from the comic books. But I think the way it is, it's absolutely Yellowface. But I do think that this was incredibly accepted at the time. So I don't know if we can like fault the movie in the way that we would today for it. I think it's one of those moments like we have to view of like, this is Flash Gordon in the early 80s. And the unfortunate part of this is that this still happens like consistently in movies. I mean, think about the Scarlett Johansson controversy or the Emma Stone controversy. Like, they're perfect examples about how even if Flash Gordon was made today, I would still believe that potentially we would have the same problem. It just would be like Ian McKellen playing him instead of Max von Sydow.
Now, I was a little confused about the Scarlett Johansson one, if you're referring to like Ghost in the Shell, because like the character is not explicitly Asian in the anime. I was a little, that one I went over my head, because I was like, no, like there's like blonde haired, blue eyed characters in that movie. I don't think it was ever established like these are Asians. They just happen to be in anime. Which
I think that's more
Japan.
what it was.
Yeah, and they did not go like Kung Fu, the TV series with that David Carradine version. That would have been inappropriate. This Ming, he's an alien. He's not a stereotypical, insult to an entire race of people.
Well, I did not think that I would ever see a more annoying female performance than Freddy in Temple of Doom. I absolutely despise her character in that movie, but I was wrong because Dale is horrible. Like, I really was frustrated by her in this film, from her line at the start of, I don't know, Flash, this is not my scene, to like her not being able to turn the time turner and complaining about it. Like, I loathed every single minute she was on screen. But Aura, on the other hand, I was completely obsessed with. I loved the way she like weirdly and creepily twirled her dad's mustache. Like, I actually laughed out loud at that. Her accent, even just the way she walked was so intentional. Loved her. And I don't understand, again, how this character did not get bigger play in like pop culture, how people didn't, want to dress up as her and like, be her. And maybe I'm just too young to remember it. Like, was she a thing? Like Happy Meal toy?
It's like they said in the movies, because she was a lying bitch. But in my little fantasy world, I think Melania Trump is like an Aura like figure.
No.
Like she's wrapped up in this evil empire, but really she's just this horny rebel with a cat face that says things like, with a kiss because I like you. Melania, if you're out there and you're listening and you want to defect, Shat Nation will welcome you with open arms.
Oh, so you're saying she was trying to like seduce Pence in the back of like Air Force One?
Gross.
Use your mind.
With a kiss because I like you.
Mother, where's mother? Mommy?
Aura and Flash arrive at Arborea, where Aura asks the prince to keep Flash safe. Baron agrees not to kill Flash, but forces him to perform a deadly ritual. Flash pretends to be dying and escapes. Baron follows, but they are both captured by the Hawkmen. Aura is tortured until she admits her treason, and Ming orders her banished to the ice moon Phrygia once his wedding to Dale has taken place. Meanwhile, Flash, Baron, and Dale are briefly reunited in Sky City. Flash is forced to fight Baron in a death match, but he saves Baron's life. Clytus arrives, and Flash and Baron kill him. Voltan orders the Hawkmen to evacuate, leaving Baron, Flash, Dale, and Zarkov behind. Ming's ship arrives, and he orders Baron, Zarkov, and Dale to be taken aboard. Ming is impressed with Flash and offers him lordship over Earth in exchange for loyalty, but Flash refuses, and Ming gives the order to destroy Voltan's kingdom along with Flash. Flash finds a rocket cycle and escapes before Sky City is destroyed.
At this point in the movie, I asked myself one question, which is how many times can Flash pretend to die? Because you get the gas chamber, you get the blowing up of Cloud City, you get it over and over and over again. I mean, half of this movie is people thinking that Flash is dead and then coming back around again. And poor Dale, we're back to Dale. She has to consistently again and again have those lines like, oh, Flash, or I really loved him. And I think one fake out death per movie, like that's like enough for me. I don't need it over and over again.
I don't know why he's faking his death. Die on Mong. Who wouldn't want to die on Mong? Listen, caskets, funerals, surprisingly expensive on Earth. Meanwhile, Flash, he gets this gorgeous gold embossed casket from Ming with his name on it, free of charge. And if that's how they treat their enemies, imagine how their heroes are sent off. Ming's got serious style and extends even to the way he lays people to rest.
And that tells you how advanced that this kingdom is. They treat him. What is your final wish? I want to see Dale. Do they say no? Okay, you get a conjugal visit. Let's bring in Dale. They do everything. Gene, that casket, I could only wish for one. That elaborate, that kind. The way that they execute you is it's humane. This is the place you want to live. And I think maybe if we weren't under attack by Ming, we would look at him differently. But Ming, besides being this kind of crazy leader who makes people fall on their sword to show how loyal they are, he is also a very supportive father. And I think his daughter, who's very promiscuous, and it is an open known fact that her appetite is insatiable, that she's trying to seduce everyone. And I found myself thinking how progressive this was. You have a strong female character. She owns her sexuality. There is no shame. Any of the male characters, nobody calls her a slut. Nobody puts her down. She is just Princess Aurora. She's got like a stable of men that she manipulates. And these aren't like slaves or people forced to have sex with her. These are powerful men. She gets them all on their knees for her, and they know they're not the only one. And they're lusting after her, doing whatever they can to get her attention. She's got this power over these people, and she weaponizes her sexuality for her own pleasure. She's got her secret pleasure moon. And I found myself thinking, why didn't women champion this character? She wasn't Princess Leia in a bikini tied up to Jabba the Hutt who needed to be rescued by Luke. She owned her sexual powers and her seductive ability. And I think it was unique for movies in this time.
Unique?
Come up with one.
I wrote in my notes, insert eye roll here, right? Like, why can't she just be like an awesome character and sex have nothing to do with it? I don't think there's anything unique about her at all. She still gets banished. She still is like the sexy figure. Like, no, she's very stereotypical. Like, she's not, I would not call her a role of female empowerment. She's fine, but she's not some feminist icon.
But why are you shaming her for enjoying sex and pleasure?
Oh, no. I'm not shaming her. I think that the writers totally pigeonholed her by making her want to be sexy. And it's such a man's version of like, look, this is how women become empowered, is they just have more sex and talk about it.
No, but she's not a slut.
Okay, no, I'm not slut shaming her. I'm saying the fact that they're even like, this is how she'll be empowered is by using her, her sexual prowess on her own time. Like, ugh, it's such a Sex in the City type of female empowerment. It makes it, nope.
But I think on a broader scale, the movie takes this look at women that we're not really used to seeing in the early 80s. Like the women of Mong, across the board, there's some bad girls. Like you got Kala, she's cranking Zarkov's intelligent beyond the limit set by Clytus. Aura's rescuing Flash simply because she wants to fuck him. Like, that's it. It's not political. It's just like, yeah, that's a good piece of meat. I want it. It's a bit cheesy, but dude, when she straddled Flash while he was piloting the ship and she started giving instructions on like how to finger it, I'm pretty sure she wasn't talking about flying a spacecraft. And I'm still trying to figure out how her don't use your mouth, use your brain is a double entendre, but I'm pretty sure it was.
Well, I have a question here about just now that we're talking about sex and pleasure and all that. Does Ming's ring have the ability to make women climax? Was that something, or was this just a unique ability with Earth women?
Oh man, I've been reading a book that's been blowing my mind. It's about women parts and sex.
Fuck you.
No, I'm serious.
Oh,
It's called Come As You Are, the surprising new science that'll transform your sex life. And in it, they talk about basically the what's called sexual non-concordance, right? It's like the example that Big D, let's say you saw something sexual happening that you were not into, but you still got a boner anyway. It's happened to all of us. And you're like, What the fuck is up with that, right? I feel guilty getting a boner over this thing. And it's because your genital brain connection is not always like 100%. For dudes, it's about 50%. For women, it's about 10%. And so I think in this case, Ming could have elicited a physical response, even though the person's brain was against it. That's my belief on Ming's ring. I don't know the science behind it, but she was definitely getting off on something.
Whew, Gene, thank you for that info. I've spent so much time thinking I'm going to hell. So I'm not actually turned on by those things just because I'm aroused.
Absolutely. In fact, in studies, women watched bonobos having sex, and while their conscious mind was not like into it, their vagina was like, this is sexually relevant, and would react. Bonobos.
So we've already talked about here the ties between Star Wars and Flash, and that Lucas got a lot of his inspiration for Star Wars from Flash, whereas Flash is Luke, Baron is like Han. And as we're going on here into the movie, it became harder and harder for me to not see a lot more similarities that I think that Lucas borrowed directly from Flash Gordon. We both have flying cities that look very much alike. We have swamp-covered planets, and Arborea has a treetop community, which looks a lot like Endor. You know, Lucas actually even stole William Hootkins, who plays Zarkov's assistant Munson. That's Porkin, Red 6 in Star Wars.
Yeah.
You also had at the end of this movie, which looks like very much the ending of Star Wars, where you're getting the medals and it is the after effect of, yes, we've won the battle, that comes into some big score. But the one thing that I don't think Star Wars ever did, Star Wars never went full measure. They never tried to scare you. There was nothing in Star Wars that I was terrified of. But this scene when we get onto Arbor and you have Baron and Flash, they're going to play Russian roulette with the wood beast, the big green tree scorpion in the Temple of the Tree Men. And you got to put your arm in and you're waiting. And it's that uncomfortable pause and the sound of like rustling leaves. To this day, I can remember as a kid, like being terrified of any downed tree or stumps or what could be rustling around in there, that this comes on and I just got goosebumps. It was a bad feeling.
Man, you would love like the Appalachia TikTok, which is all about just be terrified of all of the trees within the forest out in Appalachia. But I do agree with you. Like clearly there's inspiration here, but I'm going to go back to it that the Star Wars stories is just better. Like I think the Force, the character, the family history, the idea that you inherit the evil of your family, like it's a lot more complex. And so I think he took tropes. I think he took things that existed that was out there, but I wouldn't say that he stole it. I don't know necessarily that it's derivative as much as it's inspired by. And there's complexity, there's fun in Star Wars. And I don't know if we would use either of those words other than unintentional fun in this movie.
At the risk of dumbing down the conversation, was there a rule against using the same hole in the stump game? Because that would be my move. Like Big D, if you stuck your arm in a hole and nothing happened to you, I would go for the same hole. It seems like they keep going for new holes, which is a bad move.
Yeah, somebody who loves rules. I don't even think they went over that.
Yeah, they really need to establish that. Okay, here's the deal.
That is an important one. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Flash and Voltan plan an attack on Mingo City. General Kala dispatches the war rocket Ajax to kill Flash, but the Hawkmen ambush and seize the rocket. Meanwhile, Princess Aura overpowers her guard and frees Baron and Zarkov from the execution chamber. Flash and the Hawkmen attack Mingo City in Ajax, and Kala activates the defenses as Ming and Dale's wedding begins. Mingo City's lightning field can only be penetrated by flying Ajax into it at a suicidal speed. Flash volunteers to stay at the helm, and Baron and Zarkov enter the control room and kill Kala.
Okay, so much like Star Wars, we're getting into the big space battle at the end of the film. We've got Hawk people, and they're attacking the war rocket Ajax, and it is nothing short of epic. Okay, now I know that the action, it's clunky, it's a bit visually uninspired. It's not the same as Spacecraft, like that cutting edge sci-fi that Lucas used. But once you get that score kicks in, and it's like, and the Hawkmen are coming down, I sat up. I was like, fuck yes, this is what you need going into battle. And there's no lyrics. It is just a rock anthem from Queen. And it's technically less, I think, impressive. But I just felt like the visual excess of these ridiculous Hawkmen flying in, and the spacecraft look like 50s cars in the US with the big wings, or they look like bombers with lots of windows that aren't practical. But I think the space battle, it holds up against Star Wars, where Star Wars always took itself so seriously. And you had another great score there by John Williams coming in. It's like the grandeur of this final attack. Here, Queen coming in, rocking it out. Hawk people attacking, explosions, Flash on his fucking like Sydow, like jet ski, like space bike. This shit was wild. And I dare say the end of this, the final attack into Mingo City, I think it rivals the attack on the Death Star. And if anything, it was much more fun. Much more fun.
Okay, so like this is when I get confused when I'm doing my notes, because I'm doing my notes and I'm going back through Slack and reading the conversation about how much you love this. And the whole time I'm just thinking this has to be irony, right? Like this has to not be real, right? Because this is terrible. And I'll give you this fun. Yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah, it's fine. But better than the Death Star? I mean,
I think it's more fun.
Those Hawkmen against that weird sunset backdrop straight out of it's like they had no money, so they stole the painted background from Gone with the Wind and they threw them in front of it. And you've got that spaceship that has the needle point on the end. Mm-hmm. Like it was so bad. And I loved laughing at it, but it's not, I don't think this is intended to be funny. Right? Gene, help me out here.
I feel I could be the objective voice here because I'm not a Star Wars fan. I'm absolutely not a Star Wars fan. Big D, you're crazy. You're crazy. First of all, the attack on the Death Star is so much fun. It's so iconic. It's so memorable. You can quote it. It's cool. It's exciting every time you watch it. Man, I don't know. This attack was dumb. They're flat out dumm.
They're different. Okay, that one was
they're different. One's cool tense. And one is dumb.
Oh, I disagree. I'm gonna go run home after this, Gene, and go watch like Fox and see if it's on again.
You know what this is more like? This is more like that last Star Wars where they're like running
the horses,
space horses on a battle cruiser. But that's what this is.
Hold on. That's what a movie looks like when it's trying to be serious. These hawk people getting shot out of the sky and you can see the wires holding them up. This is an homage to the original comic strip. This is not trying to be serious.
You think that they sat there while making this movie going, this will look badass if they can see the strings. And we all wear little sandals. And we line up in rows and fall down. And then when we win, we'll fly up in the sky and spell thanks.
Look,
I don't know.
You want to talk about the two, right? So you've got the X-Wing fighters against this giant planet destroyer. So let's talk about the ship in this movie. This ship confuses the shit out of me because it's got balconies like a pirate ship. It has sliding doors for them to come out of instead of cannons like they come out of them. And it seems much too small to house that many people. And like, I couldn't help but think, what do they do when they're not fighting? Do they just stand like shoulder to shoulder with their guns? Because it makes no sense. And it just seems to be set up as like the ship that you attack. It's the ship that you go attack because the wings are the perfect size for your enemies to stand on and shoot at you. Like, it just seems like the shittiest way to defend your city.
I think Ming was caught in a certain mindset. The way that he rules, he never would occur to him the Hawkman could rise up against him. Defense is not this guy's strong suit. He's trying to have a wedding during an all-out attack on his empire. He's got laser defenses that just shoot randomly into the air with no targeting. His troops have more armor on their asses than they do on their vital organs. And worse than Dr. Evil, Ming leaves Flash alone to die in Sky City, but forgets that there's a fucking rocket jet ski right there. I think that he rules through fear, not through tactical genius.
And I again will say that these ships, they're true to the time and they're showing respect for the comic strip because the designs are almost spot on of like the bombers of the time. Yes, they don't make sense in space now, but neither do Hawk people.
But I think we saw in the evolution of like, say, the Batman series, right? That the closer you try to get into the comic book, the worse it looks as a live action movie. You have to have some trade-offs, right? When you try to make it to a T what the comic book looked like, it ends up being silly. It ends up being Adam West and Burt Ward. Well, Baron fights through Ming's guards and deactivates the lightning field before Ajax hits it. Flash flies the rocket ship into the city's wedding hall, and the ship's bow impales Ming. Ming attempts to use his power ring on Flash, but his power falters and nothing happens. Ming then aims the ring at himself and is seemingly vaporized by its remaining power. A huge victory celebration ensues. Baron and Ara become the new leaders in Ming's place. Baron names Voltan the general of their armies, and the final frame shows Ming's ring being picked up by the hand of an unseen person. Ming's evil laugh echoes as the ending credits roll, and following the credits, the text, "The End," is shown on the screen before a question mark is appended.
So, okay, I get it now. I was complaining about the ship earlier, and we get kind of like Chekhov's pointy end here because I question why the ship had a needle. And now we know why, because the needle had to impale Ming. Of course, not kill him, but impale him. And I'll be honest, I laughed out loud. And I loved that how ridiculous this little ship, which the miniatures, Big D, you said that they look good? No, this miniature looked terrible. It looked like a syringe. And it comes back around and it's useful at the end. And I was okay with that.
I have to stick up for Ajax in this instance, Ash. My dad was an Army aviator.
Air Force.
Needles on the nose of spacecraft are a real thing, and they make a ton of sense. It's called a pitot static tube and measures velocity and altitude. You need this on any sort of ship that's flying atmospherically.
Do they have to be 4 feet long?
Well, yes. You don't know the atmosphere of Mong. It's Asian.
I actually don't even think it could be space because technically the Hawk people, they wouldn't be able to flap their wings unless you have some kind of like resistance.
No, it's clearly flying in atmosphere. That's why it has a pitot static tube.
Yeah, so I think that we need more information about the actual makeup of this universe.
I don't think we do.
So I don't think we should be throwing stones here, people. I think we should give some artistic freedom in the way that it
how do
presented
TIE fighters
technology.
fly?
You know what?
Their wings don't make sense at all.
Well,
Right.
they have technology that you don't understand yet.
But they're in the
Okay.
past.
In a galaxy far, far away, it's different there. Accept it. It sets that out from the fucking beginning.
But listen, so as much as you guys hated this film, you know this was almost supposed to be a trilogy.
Oh,
That they all
God.
signed on for the sequels before they started producing this. And then Sam Jones, you mentioned in the beginning, Gene, he had a problem, actually left the production. And once he left, he refused to promote the film. And that all but just made this movie guaranteed it was going to bomb at the box office. And then they just wrote off every sequel, you know, and I wanted to see where the story would go. I think that having it be a one and done, that this one bright beacon of light, this star, this one odd, strange movie, it became a cult classic. And I feel like it was just everything aligning at once. The soundtrack, the actors, the score, the visuals. If you did a trilogy, I don't know if they could have lived up. And I don't know if I'm being delusional or a fanboy, but I feel like having the trilogy would have somehow diluted Flash's place in movie history.
Not only would it dilute Flash's place in history, it'd be a crime against humanity. The fact that this was not a trilogy is an act of mercy. Making a Flash trilogy would be like, hey, people really liked The Room. We should make a sequel of that. This movie's bad. And it reminded me of hearkening back to my clubbing days when I was clubbing like 2-3 nights a week, right? And you would go and there'd be a person that showed up. It would be like a drunk lady on rollerblades on the dance floor or some guy who was doing like a one-person mosh pit. And you see it that night and you're like, haha, that's crazy. Check that shit out. You talk about it for a week or two at brunch. I remember that guy that was moshing by himself with the lady in the rollerblades. If that person starts coming back every week, suddenly they're a nuisance on the dance floor. That's what this movie is. It's a one and done. I'm glad they made it. I'm glad they didn't make any more.
Yeah, because then people could commission the other two and we'd have to watch them. Ugh. No, thank you.
Now's the time in the podcast where we give our Shat score for Flash Gordon. Our Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is building a rocket that takes 2 people to operate and lucking out when the New York Jets quarterback and a travel agent crash your greenhouse and mistake your spacecraft for a phone booth. 5 wipes is an absolute disaster movie. It is losing your entire empire because you were bored and decided to destroy a planet already hell-bent on its own destruction. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for Flash Gordon?
So I just want to start off and say I'm not the insane outlier here who thinks this is a great movie. It has an 83% Rotten Tomatoes score. So there are a lot of people who like it. It is still relevant in pop culture. You have it in that Seth MacFarlane, the Teddy movies. You know, it is in the popular culture. They're doing a new animated series about it. So I think my love for this, I'm not alone, but I have to admit there are some flaws. I was going to go 0.25 wipes, but I think I'm going to stay with 0.5 wipes.
Oh my God.
Based on this. This movie is fun. It's fun in a way that Lucas and Star Wars could only dream of. I think by taking itself less serious, Flash stayed really close to the roots of the comic. And I think it was more fun. And I think that it, without having that super overinflated sense of self-worth and Lucas and what he's turned into these days, I think Flash Gordon was free to become bizarre, have bizarre themes, have imaginary visuals, lava lamps, and it became something iconic. I really do enjoy this film. Yes, I'm not stupid. I'm not completely unaware. Yes, it probably isn't a 0.5 wipe movie, but I don't care. I don't care. My brain and my libido and my heart and Gene, all my chakras, they're not in alignment. I cannot give this film anything worse than a 0.5 because it's a magical film to me, a magical time in my life. And those who were around those days were becoming fewer and far between. This is a movie that I think was perfect.
Okay. That was the biggest roller coaster of emotions I've experienced in a very long time on this pod because I had seen your 0.25 and was like, what the fuck? And then when you started like, I was going to give, I was like, okay, he's come to his senses. He's realized that this movie's not that great. And then you give it a 0.5? A 0.5?
That's a big change.
I want to point out that this means Big D believes that Flash Gordon is better than, in his own ranking,
yes.
Jacob's Ladder, Forrest Gump, Full Metal Jacket, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
They're different films.
No. See, you're playing with this is where my loathing of injustice comes in. You are playing, sir, with our scoring system.
I can't, the heart wants what the heart wants, Ash.
I want to remind you that you did this with Red Dawn as well and then had to apologize for it like a month later.
Well, listen, whatever you people think and you two think, just at least know my score is genuine. This is not a punitive score to try to balance out the injustice and what you guys are going to do to it. This is what my heart feels.
And as witness, Big D put his wipe score down first, so he didn't even know what we were going to give it.
Yeah, because his insanity came well before the two of us entered the picture here. Now, here's the thing. Now it's going to be hard for me to not get this 5 to balance out your 0.5, but I won't do that because I believe it. Because I believe in the integrity of this podcast.
You can't do that.
I laughed my way through this movie. I had a good time watching it because I loved making fun of it.
You had fun.
I loved making fun of it, but it's a bad movie. And I don't know how much of it was intentional. And so it's bad, which makes me want to give it a 4, which really is now a 5 because you gave it the insane score you did. But it is fun to watch it be so bad, which makes me want to give it a 1. So I'm going to give it a 3.25. That's my math.
I think 3.25 is fair, Ash. And I'm actually surprised that I came in with more wipes than you. Big D, I'm stunned by your score. I keep thinking you're going to say gotcha any second now. This is a movie that was 20 years old the day it was made, which makes it feel 60 years old now. And I don't mean that in a good way. This is not Turner Classic Movies, right? This is a cross between an even worse Star Wars than Star Wars was and a shitty Buckaroo Banzai.
Yes.
That's what this movie wanted to be. It wanted to be Buckaroo Banzai and Star Wars, and it failed. The only reason I'm not giving it 4 wipes is I'd like to think that someday in mine and Sean's fantasy world, it'll get the Rocky Horror Picture Show treatment and redeem itself. But today is not that day. This is 3 3/4 wipes for me.
Yes.
I can't help. I'm feeling bullied. I'm feeling.
How are you feeling bullied? You gave it first.
I respect your score. I'm just shocked by it.
Because he doesn't. He thought that you had more commitment to the scoring system.
Fun.
After 300 something movies, you think you know a guy.
It's so fun. Well, regardless of how wrong you two can be, the final wipe score of 2.5 that now ties this in the 172 spot with Empire Records, Back to the Beach, Little Giants, Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, Ravenous, and Taps.
I mean, none of those is a great movie.
Empire Records is a great movie.
No, I
like blouses.
Maybe I do. I like it better than this film.
Young people who have not seen it, if you like to have a good time, just go
watch this movie.
Go on YouTube and do, Flash Gordon, Ajax Attack, Queen. Just watch that. And if you're not just fucking pumping your fist, screaming, fuck yeah, then maybe this isn't the movie for you.
Yeah.
All right, Sean, thank you so much for your commission. And we hope we did the movie justice. I think we were very generous with our wipe scores. Big D, let's hit our voicemail before we close out tonight.
Alexander Wolfgang from the Secondary Heroes podcast. I was just calling in because I got back from my vacation from Tampa, Florida. Go Bucks. And I was absolutely delighted to find 2 episodes of Shat The Movies waiting for me on my Apple podcast. And hot damn, they were good episodes. You can't judge me. I hope you don't judge me. Whatever. I've never seen Natural Born Killers nor Blue Thunder. But after listening to you guys and hearing how much fun you guys have recording these episodes, it made me want to go watch a bad movie like Blue Thunder. Every week I look forward to you guys' podcast. You guys do such an amazing job, which absolutely blows my mind when I hear about all the 1-star reviews you guys get because of Ash. I think Ash actually elevates the show by a ton. Having a female perspective, which, by the way, is rare in the podcast world, is pretty awesome. And I love that she brings her own aspect to the show. Everybody, all the hosts on the show are great. And I look forward to every episode. And like I said, about the 1-star review, I always forget to rate and review podcasts that I like. And after listening to Ash and how she just gets obliterated by these basement dwellers, it made me want to go on and make a point to actually do a 5-star review for you guys, because you guys really do brighten my week on my walks with my dog. It's the best time of day when I get to listen to you guys. I only have like 3 or 4 podcasts that I listen to on a weekly basis that I actually look forward to, and you guys are top of the list. So I hope you guys keep going on. Keep Ash forever because, yeah, she's awesome. Anyways, have a good one, guys. I look forward to more episodes. Adios.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for your voicemail. I got to point out that as much as I appreciate people supporting Ash and saying that she deserves better wipe scores and that people are picking on her because she's a woman, that, you know, she brings a lot more to the podcast than being the female perspective. And it always is so weird to me that I think of all the identifiers for Ash, like woman, I generally think of last. I think like she brings a Southern perspective. She brings a literary perspective. She has a vast knowledge of books. She has a vast knowledge of TV, stuff that I don't know about. And she's the youth in the podcast, right? And so there's so many more angles that she brings into this. And I just hope that it's not just the fact that she's a woman. I mean, I'm not saying that you're saying that, Alex, but also just to highlight that there's like that our 3 diverse viewpoints always come together really nicely. And I really appreciate that. But the ways I see Ash and I as being different, our sex is actually like the least of those. Well,
first of all, I really appreciate, you know, your sentiments, Gene. I do. And of course I appreciate Alex too. I have to remind myself, Big D is the best at reminding me of the fact that like we're talking about a very small percentage of the population. And it's, again, I would like to remind everyone it's 3 people. And this week I would like to give a shout out to Dawg, DAWG 180 on Apple Podcasts, who left just a horrendous review for me this week. Appreciate you. Glad that you're still listening and still so frustrated that I'm still on. I think this is like his 6th that he's left and updated over the last few months. So love you. And, you know, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. And I'm glad that you get inspired to watch the movies, because that was my favorite part about listening to this show before I got on. Was this podcast introduced me to a lot of films that I hadn't seen, and even ones that I had seen, getting to like go watch it and then feel like I was a part of this community by watching it and then listening to your review was always really fun. And honestly, it makes me miss our Shappy hours. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it makes me miss those early days of the pandemic as well, because like there was something really nice about that community that we all created and doing that together. And so that just absolutely makes my day that people are still out there watching these films and bringing some semblance of a new audience to them, because that's pretty cool, because we uncover some pretty awesome gems. This not being one of them. I want to make sure that's very clear. Flesh Gordon is fucking awful. But other than this one, I'm really glad you especially watched Natural Born Killers, because that one's a lot of fun.
You better be real careful, young lady, with what's coming next week. Okay,
oh,
don't you judge this film with that fucking house fire. Okay, yeah, exactly.
I cannot wait. Mortal Kombat. Spoiler alert.
But Ash, before we get there, I just wanted to let you know, I've never said this before, but your favorite parts for me are not your lady parts. So I love you regardless of that. I love you for more than just your sex, just so you know. But next week,
thank you.
Every generation, a portal opens up between the outer world and Earth. Emperor Shao Kahn, ruler of the mystical outer world, pounces on that moment that the portal reopens and slips through with his mighty warriors. I really don't think they're that mighty, but intent on total domination and uniting the 2 worlds. However, he has only 7 days to complete his task. I don't know why 7 days. In the meantime, opposition grows, and the warriors Sonya Blade and Jax and Katana and Liu Kang get ready for war. Commissioned by Riley G. Wow.
Come on. You want to talk about music. There's never more music that makes you more amped up than the music in this movie.
Wow. Wow.
No?
I'll eat some serious ass to KMFDM.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sean, for your commission. Thank you, Riley, for your upcoming commission. Thank you to all the commissioners who made this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat The Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat The Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com, or leave us a voicemail by going to shatpod.com and using the SpeakPipe feature on any device. You can support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow, dog. On behalf of my co-hosts, Ash and Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next week for the following movie.
Shao Kahn, Emperor of Outworld.
The Earth was created in 6 days, so too shall it be destroyed.
Your planet, Outworld, has begun to merge into one realm. Think of it as hell on Earth.
I thought our victory closed those portals.
Mother. If I am correct, your mother Sindel is the key to all of this. By reuniting you with her, Khan's spell will be broken.
This is the beginning of the end!
Khan's portals stay open.
Pretty cool, huh? Raiden?
It's a new look.